Hey guys, it's Chris from Highline Guitars, and you're watching another episode of From the Luthier's Workbench. In this episode, let's talk about wood glue clamping and why you're probably doing it all wrong. The other day I was watching a YouTube video, and there was a guy who was gluing two pieces of wood together, and he was in the process of applying the clamps. What I noticed was he turned the clamps so tight that I thought for sure that those two pieces of wood were going to snap and break apart under the pressure. And I realized I have seen so many videos like that where people are gluing wood together and then just ratcheting down those clamps with every bit of force they can muster, thinking that that's somehow the better way, or the way that they're supposed to do it. And really all it is a symptom of our culture. And that's where we tend to think that if a little is good, then more must be better. And in the case of clamping, that's just not the case. You don't need to apply that much pressure when you're clamping two pieces of wood together. For example, when I make a body, I always use two pieces of wood and I'll clamp those together to make the blank. And I'll apply the wood glue to the surface, spread it evenly, and then when I clamp it, I watch to make sure I get a little bit of squeeze out, but I make sure that I'm not squeezing out as much of the glue as I put on it. And that's an indication of over clamping. And what can happen if you put too much clamping pressure, if you're gluing a fretboard to a neck and you've got, 15 clamps along that fretboard and you're cranking those things down as tight as you can possibly turn the handles on the clamps, and you start to see all that glue squeezing out, you're actually starving the joint of glue. And there's a good chance there's not going to be enough glue left in there to give you the best possible gluing joint. So what you need to do is you need to really pay attention to how much squeeze out is appearing when you clamp the two pieces of wood together. If that squeeze out appears to be about equal to the amount of glue that you put on in the first place, you've obviously put too much clamping pressure. You just want a small tiny bead of glue just appearing. That's all the pressure you need. And what's happening when you're gluing using like a tight bond wood glue is the glue is penetrating into the surface of the wood. And what that does is it kind of causes the fibers to loosen up. And when you put the two pieces of wood together and apply a little bit of clamping pressure, those fibers will intermingle. And once the glue has dried and cured, you've got a really, really strong bond. But if you put too much pressure, like I said, what happens is you cram those pieces of wood and the fibers together so tightly that there's no room left for the glue. And because the glue is liquid, it's always going to lose out. So when you clamp that wood together super tight and you squeeze out all that glue, there's just no room left for it. So you starve the joint, and then there'll be a tiny, trace amount of glue in there, but not enough to make for a really strong bond. So remember, when you go to clamp it, just make sure you're getting a little tiny bead of squeeze out. It shouldn't be running down. And, and it shouldn't appear as though the amount of squeeze out is equal to the amount of glue that you put in the joint in the first place. So minimize that amount and don't starve the joint of glue. Now, another thing that I hear people doing all the time is that they'll clamp up the joint, like let's say they glue a fretboard to a neck, and then they'll let it sit overnight. And I do the same thing. However, when you glue two pieces of wood together using tight bond wood glue, you don't have to worry about letting it sit for more than, say, an hour. All it takes is about an hour for the glue to set up, and then once you remove the clamps, that wood isn't going to go anywhere. So you don't have to let it sit overnight. I realize that some folks will do that because you're exercising caution. So, if that's the way you've always done it and you don't want to change it, that's fine. But if you ever find yourself in a situation where you're gluing wood together and you're working on a project that you've got to move quickly on, Give it only an hour and you should be fine.